Never trust a spiritual leader who doesn't dance. This is Rebooty and the Beast, a podcast in 2 parts, and I'm Matt Molinaro.
And I'm En Burke. In the first episode, we review an original piece of media, and in episode 2, we discuss the reboot.
We sure do.
And this is episode 2.
This is episode 2 of this 4-part quest we're coming on. Episode 10 of our series in general, and this is going to be a very special episode, I feel like.
Well, this movie did feel like a very special episode of like Seventh Heaven or something like that, so that seems fitting.
The bangs were certainly inspired by Seventh Heaven. Shout out to Lucy.
Oh boy.
But yes, I mean, if you tuned in last episode, you know where we're going. We last time did the Karate Kid, the original from, was it 84 or 85?
84, yeah.
84. And now, 1 decade later, we watched the next Karate Kid.
Was it a full decade in between?
Well, yeah, this one came out in 94, allegedly. I was like, when did this come out? Because I have memories about this being in the movie theater. Like the commercials on TV.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, let's see, this was 94, so I was like around 9. I was thinking like, how cool. A girl. A girl, like, it's the lead of this movie. I'm gonna go see that. But I knew I never would be allowed to. Or like, my dad, can you imagine me telling my dad I want to go see the next Karate Kid?
Oh, yeah.
The speed with which we would have been at church.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week, but I do remember that there was a lot of flack for the main character being a woman in this movie.
Yes, which is, of course, what enticed me about it at all as a kid.
Yeah,
was that there was a female main character. But this was not. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's not what I expected. It's kind of exactly what I expected.
Yeah.
So next Karate Kid stars, we have Pat Morita reprising his role as Mr. Miyagi.
Yes.
And we have the iconic Hilary Swank as young Julie Pierce. Is this her first role, maybe?
It's kind of, I think, her first big role, yes.
Okay, yeah, so predates all of the other things we've seen her in. So keep that in mind. Have you seen Labyrinth?
I have, yes.
Okay, it's been
100 years, though.
Yeah, it's giving, like, Jennifer Connelly is an excellent actress now, but in Labyrinth, woof. And I think this is another example of that young first time.
Yeah. I'm gonna defend Hilary Swank a little bit because I also felt like her acting was pretty terrible. And then I realized they really gave her nothing to work with because her character basically goes from just an asshole to a like Zen Buddhist. And so she basically has the two polar extremes of the emotional spectrum and nothing in between.
Oh, I mean, she definitely, for this role, went to the Elizabeth Berkley School for Acting.
Yes. I think you mean the Elizabeth Berkley School for Overacting.
It is giving Doggy Chow. It's giving me everything I needed. It's almost like, I almost felt like I was watching a parody at times.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I know it's not supposed to be, but some of the things that were said and done, I was like, me and Davey were laughing out loud.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
I will say, okay, so this movie opens on like basically a military band. Mr. Miyagi is coming out of a town car, and it's basically a recognition of him and his friend in battle who I guess died. I'm still a little hazy on the details of who these people are and how they died and all of that, but it sounds like, oh no, I do remember now. Okay, so his friend in the battle died later in life, but this is like a recognition of him and Mr. Miyagi and the heroes that they were during the war. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of immediately cut to Boston. So that opening scene is kind of an interesting tone to start the movie, but it basically is telling us that Miyagi was recognized as a war hero, right?
Yeah, him and it just connects him to like why he's going to meet this character, I guess, in the first place. But it goes on for so effing long.
Well, let me tell you, I really enjoyed the fact that we watched this on a computer and that I was able to play this at 1.25 speed, because that really made all the difference.
Oh my gosh. I have taken advantage of that in the past for certain things.
Okay.
Later on in movies and or really long scenes. I'll definitely be taking advantage of that in the future.
Yes.
I didn't on this one because I was just really in the moment.
Okay. I had like a semi-limit. Mine was part practicality because I had a semi-limited span of time. I kind of like I was traveling this weekend, so I sort of like had to fit it in. And so I was like, all right, well, if I watch it on 1.25 speed, I can fit it in right now. And so it was part that, and also part like, I don't think this is going to be the most amazing movie I've ever seen, so I'm not going to miss much if I watch this at a little bit of a faster speed.
Yeah, I agree. So we have Mr. Miyagi, and he is with the widow of the friend that he saved, or that they saved people together in war, whatnot. Oh, yes. I forgot to tell you the summary of the movie.
Yes, I was just going to ask you for that. Yeah,
sorry. IMDb. It just says, Mr. Miyagi is back, and he takes a new pupil under his wing, a troubled adolescent girl.
All right.
I mean, kinda. You know what I think it should have said?
What?
Where's the karate? So...
I think that's so funny you say that, because I feel like there was more karate in this movie than, well,
karate?
Other than the villains. Well, yeah.
Or
I mean,
assault.
Well, okay. So the bullies in this movie don't use karate. The bully's weapon in this movie is sexual assault.
Right.
But we get a lot more training scenes in this movie than we did with Karate Kid, the original.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead.
For now, Mr. Miyagi's having this really weird dinner with the widow of his friend, who also went to the Elizabeth Berkley School of Overacting.
Yes.
Holy crap.
You know what, I'm gonna make fun of this, one of my favorite things, but the acting quality in this movie is like an episode of Charmed.
Beyond Charmed.
Am I wrong?
It is an after-school special to the extreme. This whole opening scene, it is a very special episode of Different Strokes. It is like step-by-step. TGIF Friday night just did an episode on gun violence acting.
Yes.
It is that.
Yes.
And for no reason, he's having dinner with her, and then her granddaughter, Hilary Swank, storms into this movie like a bat out of hell. The absolute moodiest teenager vibes you've ever seen in your life, for no reason.
And you know she's a teenager because she's got a plaid flannel tied around her waist, because it's the early 90s.
And shut up. I literally, my next paragraph, I'm going to read you my exact note.
Okay.
You know she's a bad girl. You can tell she has a flannel wrapped around her waist.
I'm glad we both picked up on that.
Yes, and she has that a lot. She might as well have like the backwards baseball cap, but it would crush her her huge, heavy Lucy from Seventh Heaven bangs, which I was kind of living for, to be honest.
Yeah. So the widow, who is her grandmother, by the way, is like, Julie, say hi to Mr. Miyagi. And she like just walks past and then pops her head back out and goes, hi. Also, I don't understand. This is her first scene, and we don't understand why she is such an asshole at this point. So we're just meant to believe that that's part of her character.
Right. And she goes into the kitchen and is getting beer out of the fridge.
Yeah.
And her
grandma's is she getting beer?
Yeah, her grandma's like, what are you doing? And she's like, getting a beer. And she's like, what? Why? It's not for me, it's for a friend. And she's like, get back here. And she's like walking out. And the way she screams the word Susan, me and Davey jumped.
Oh, God. I know. I was like, who is Susan?
Susan! And then we get a little like, this is the way the writing is in this movie. This is the writing in the movie.
So ham-fisted.
It's like, literally, she's like walking out the door. They're having a fight about who knows what, because we don't, like you said, we have no reason to know what's going on yet. She's walking out the door and she goes, Susan! And the girl's name is Julie. So she turns around and she goes, this is like, I could probably say, I don't remember it, but this is probably it word for word. She says, what, Grandma? My name's not Susan. My name's Julie. Susan was my mom. Susan died in a car accident, just like my dad. They both died. Now they're dead. I'm Julie. She's not me. Something like that.
That was pretty much it. It was so much exposition dropped in the most clunky way imaginable.
It was like if you were reading a script and it was giving you your character description of who you are and your mentality, that would have been the description. And she just read it out loud as if it was normal dialogue.
Yes.
Was it a car accident? Correct. I forget.
Yes, they both died in a car accident.
Okay, so that's where we're at. She is living with her grandma. Her parents have passed, and that's why she's full of emotions. Plus, the movie
so Mr. Miyagi...
I was just going to say...
Oh, go ahead.
The other reason she's full of emotions, which this movie will really be heavy-handed with, is because she's a girl.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, God.
The amount of times that it's like, oh, girls are different. Boys are so easy. It's like, oh, shut up. So Mr. Miyagi convinces the grandma that she should go out to his house in California and basically just like tend, again, Mr. Miyagi just getting unpaid labor.
Yes.
He's basically like, you should take a vacation. Why don't you go take care of my garden in California and I'll stay here and look after Julie and give you a break? Which is like, I mean, it's one thing to say like, oh, why don't you just go stay at my house in California for a while? And another thing to be like, why don't you go tend to my garden?
Yeah. I honestly think better idea for the movie. Let's just pause here. We actually follow the grandmother who goes to California to water his garden and realizes that she has an experience set up for her, just like Daniel had, where it's not just watering the garden, it's like really basically redoing his house and doing like landscape work. And then she is the next Karate Kid. Huh?
That having like a grandmother Karate Kid, which I guess she wouldn't be the Karate Kid at that point, she'd be the Karate Grandma. But Karate Grandma is a much more interesting premise than this movie.
Karate Grandma, trademark, no stealing it.
Nope. So, okay, so Julie is staying with me, or Miyagi's staying with Julie.
Mm-hmm.
She goes out at night and like breaks into a school, her school, presumably.
Oh my God.
Which is very strange.
What is happening? I wrote what is happening 100 times.
Yeah. So she accidentally trips an alarm without realizing it, which would lead you to believe this is the first time she's done it.
Right.
But clearly it can't be based on the storyline. So there's a little bit of a plot hole there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she gets on top of a building where she is keeping a hawk in like a big bird enclosure because the hawk has a broken wing. So she's like tending him in secret.
And can I reveal how the hawk has a broken wing now? Because that is very bizarre to me.
Yes.
It was shot. What?
Yes.
No explanation. How she found a hawk, saw it get shot. What?
In the middle of downtown Boston.
Where? How? She's got like
unclear.
The glove and everything.
Totally unclear.
Like she's a falconer.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. She is tending to this bird as though she has extensive experience with birds of prey. It is really, really strange. She kisses that bird in the face. That bird could rip your fucking face off. Yes. What are you doing?
Especially with her attitude and her energy.
Honestly.
You kidding me?
Her stank energy and that bird would have ripped her eyes out in 1 second flat.
Those bangs would have been gone.
So the police show up because she triggered this alarm, and the cops like hear the bird screech, and she's like trying to hide what's happening. Her solution is to assault a police officer by throwing a flashlight directly at his face and then running away from the scene. Which is not really the right choice.
No, she's exactly. And by the way, It works.
It works, yes.
It
and
works.
by the way,
she
also by the way,
2 police officers. One, because she throws the flashlight, and it just, of course, throwing a flashlight. I mean, I've had a flashlight thrown at me, and I basically hard stopped. I didn't know what to do. And the other one simply just got tired chasing her and just like did this dramatic wiping of his brow and just gave up.
Yeah.
Just for no reason.
I just would like to point out that if she were a video game character, throw flashlight would be one of her moves because she does it twice in this movie when she's being chased.
When she did it again, I wrote, this is her signature move.
Signature move. Also, clearly, if you threw a flashlight at a police officer in the dark, he would have just shot you. Like, this movie would have been over.
That's what Davey said. He's like, she's dead. She's dead right there.
Yeah, she would have died. Okay.
When she gets home, when she finally gets home, because of course she gets away, her grandma is sitting at the top of the steps like a ghost and Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Honestly, like there's this little bench in the stairway landing and she's just reading at it like Agatha Christie or like no, not Agatha Christie. Murder, She Wrote. Like
gosh, Jessica Fletcher. What's her name in real life? Angela Lansbury.
Why can't I think of it? Angela Lansbury, thank you.
I love that I remembered her character name first.
Yes. It's very you.
Yeah. Oh, because she hasn't left yet. She hasn't decided what she was going to do yet. So now she tells, this is the scene in which she decides this is the time. In the middle of the night, at the top of the steps, I'm going to tell her that our solution to us having like communication issues is I'm going to do a wife swap with Mr. Miyagi and he's going to live here and I'm going to go to California. You don't know this man and I trust him to take care of you. I mean, that's what it is, really.
Oh my God. It really is. You're totally right.
My gosh.
So of course Julie takes this news, with all the grace of hormonal teenager. Exactly. And just like slams her door.
Another signature move.
And then yes, another signature move. So the next day at school, she gets dropped off by Mr. Miyagi. He's like, "I'll pick you up after school."
And she's like, "I hate you. Don't bother."
Right. She seems to like not really go to class at school and kind of like sneak. She's like the bad kid who like finds the secret hiding spots at school to like avoid going to class or whatever. But she's like not smoking or anything. She's just like skipping class and listening to music.
Yeah.
Which whatever.
And like looking out from under her bangs like Samara in The Ring.
I want to point out that the bad guys in this movie are both less interesting and more problematic than they were in the 1984 movie, because in the 1984 movie, it was sort of like, oh, these kids are being influenced by this, like, bad sensei at a dojo. In this movie, they're not karate instructors. They're like, or karate students. They're like aiming to get into the military, and their instructor who I don't understand how this man has his character makes no sense. Okay, sorry. So they're under the tutelage of this man who is basically the equivalent of the toxic sensei from the first movie. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, he's like an army colonel who both works at the school and later we also find out is also a police officer.
Yes.
What?
He's a police officer, ex-military coach, possibly teacher.
Yes.
At the school.
Yes. But also like senior administrator, because he's able to like get her detention later in the movie.
Yeah, and he's also it's like weird. A well-connected cop who's like a dirty cop too. So he's obviously been in the high ranking there too. He's just a this man is a this man and this group of boys who are styled to or are actually in their 40s. In a high school.
Oh my God, thank you. Okay.
They're like
you said that.
40-year-old men in a high school. They, like you said, instead of having anything to do with like a karate group, they're just, I think they're on the football team. I guess they're all on the football team, but they're not like it's just a small group of men on the football team that are like incredibly aggressive and being trained to be killers.
That's what it seems like. It's very strange.
But
school,
anyway, in class. Okay, so this is how we're introduced to them. By the way, we just see this weird camera angle in a school where they pan down and we see like tight jeaned crotches of these like 40-year-old men walking through school in tight black shirts, like they're like auditioning for The Sopranos. And when we see them again, the practice they're doing, the football team or whatever, it's like they're getting physically assaulted by the coach.
Yes, it's like deathmatch Fight Club.
What?
So his name is Ned, the like head bad boy in this movie. His name is Ned, and basically the conflict for Hilary Swank is that he is trying to he's trying to sexually assault her throughout the entire movie.
Yes.
That is literally what his character is aiming for. He threatens her into a date, basically like, I'm going to beat you up if you don't go out on a date with me, which is just horrifying.
Wild.
Yes.
And from
then
the moment he sees her, he's manhandling her.
100%. He like is fully like, she would have bruises from the way that he's interacting with her. It's absolutely bonkers. So she gets sent to the principal's office because he like tells the colonel, who is only referred to as Colonel in this movie, that she was skipping class and smoking cigarettes. And so she gets called into the principal's office, and there's a guy making like fuck me eyes at her as he's making copies.
Who also looks about 30.
His name is McGowan, and he's her love interest in the movie. But yes, he is easily in his mid to late 30s. And as this movie has the Grease, other than Hilary Swank, this movie has the Grease treatment going on, where like everybody is 40 plus playing high schoolers. It does not make any sense. And McGowan, the love interest, gets threatened by Ned, and he says, "Don't forget, she's mine." Which is, again, she not only has expressed no interest in you, she has told you, "No, leave me alone, don't touch me, let go of me." And so she's not yours, actually. You can't possess another human being, so you're disgusting.
Right.
And McGowan, for some reason, gets assigned to like escort her to her next class. And she's like, I have to go to the ladies' room. And so she sneaks out the bathroom window and goes to the roof to go hang out with her hawk, Angel, again.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Angel,
and then we get
bird.
possibly my favorite stupid dialogue in the movie. So McGowan, her love interest, finds her on the roof with Angel, the hawk, and she's like, "You're not going to tell anybody, right? Like, you can't tell anybody about this, like, or they'll take Angel away, and she's, she needs to heal, whatever." Again, as though a 16-year-old is both capable of and responsible enough to bring a injured bird of prey back from a gunshot wound, which is not possible. So this is where we get my favorite line of dialogue, where he's like, "I don't know what I'm gonna do, and she starts freaking out and is like, "Don't tell anybody about this, or I'm gonna call Domino's and I'm gonna have 48 pizzas delivered to your house." That's the threat.
Ooh, I'd be like, thank you.
I know, honestly, great.
And
if I don't have to pay for them, I'm
deals.
thrilled. Yes, I haven't had Domino's in a long time.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Is this when she follows him for stalks him?
Yes, she stalks him and refuses to get out of his car, all the way threatening him, and tells him, quote, "You've got some kind of weird social disease," which I don't even know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, I don't know either. She's going to tell everyone he has a weird social disease. That's her threat to him. And he's like, okay. This is maybe my favorite back and forth in the movie.
Yeah.
He is talking to her on this walk because, of course, he is somehow interested in her for some reason, even though she is vile to him from the jump.
Yes. Yes.
And is just screaming in his face, following him around. He works at the train tracks, I guess, so they're walking there. It's a little bit creepy. And then he asks her, what do you want to do in the future or something? And she goes, "I never think about my future." And he goes, "Sure you do. What are you going to do next month?" "Don't know." And he goes, "What are you going to do next week?" "Don't care." And he goes, "What are you going to do in the next 5 seconds?" She goes, "I'm going to make you swear that you won't tell anybody about the hawk." What is the writing in this movie? Someone was like,
"It's bad.
Teenage girl." I know what that looks like. Super out of control, irrational. This is like men writing young girls. Again, has to
100%.
be. It
Yes.
has to
Yes.
be. If there was a woman in that writing room, I'm so sorry for what you had to go through.
I would honestly be shocked if there was a woman in the writer's room for this movie. I'll see if I can find out after when we get to our little trivia moment.
True.
So while this exchange is kind of happening, we also see Mr. Miyagi trying to find her because he said he would pick her up from school. And he observes the colonel, who is, doing practice with his group of potential army recruits. And this practice involves him saying, "Attack me," as he beats the shit out of every single one of them.
Yes. Like literally. Smacks them in the face, punching them, kicking the shit out of them.
Throwing them to the ground. Yes. Everything.
By the way, I want to mention, this movie's called The Next Karate Kid. There has been no karate yet.
No, there's not karate for a hot minute.
Not even a mention of karate.
No.
Just Mr. Miyagi. That's the only semblance of Karate Kid.
Yeah, and we haven't even seen him do anything at this point. No. But he gets into it with the colonel and is basically like, you should go easy on these boys or whatever. And the colonel, of course, doesn't take this well and is like, "Get out of here, old man," blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So we've got our quote unquote senseis sort of like pairing off again, like we did in the first movie. Mm-hmm. And then
I don't even think he says anything to him, honestly, about the kids. I think he just asks him where his granddaughter is, and the guy loses his fucking mind on him. Like, yeah, I don't even think he even confronted him. And then the guy's just super mad that he's there. So now all of a sudden the guy now is going to hate the granddaughter, or hate Julie, because a man asked where she was. What?
Right.
What?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So we learned that McGowan, the love interest, the reason he's involved with this group at all is because he wants to get into the Air Force. And so the colonel can get him a recommendation that will basically get him into the Air Force. So that's his motivation. But he isn't really into it. He doesn't like the colonel, doesn't like the other boys. So anyway, I forget what happens next, but my next note is, was this Hilary Swank's first big acting job? Because God, she's annoying.
The next thing that happens is when he walks in on her changing, and then they talk about like how she's not doing her homework.
Yes.
For like 3 months, he found out. And so Mr. Miyagi gently asks her to do her homework, and she loses her ever-loving mind.
Right. This is where she's screaming at him. We get another scene of like her running around while somebody's talking to her, and she like runs out into the street and is screaming at him about how she doesn't want to do her homework. And a pizza delivery car almost hits her. And we get sort of like a slow-mo scene where just before the car hits her, she like drops into tiger pose and leaps in the air and lands on the hood of the car and then rolls off of it. And the pizza guy is like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, are you okay? Did I hurt you?" And she screams at him.
I wrote it down too. She goes,
and then I
said I was okay.
Yes. And then screams at Mr. Miyagi and runs inside. And he follows her and asks where she learned to jump into tiger pose like that. And we learned that her father taught her karate after school. And so basically, Miyagi taught karate to her grandfather in the army, who then taught her father, and then he taught you. And her response to this is, and then they died. Everybody died.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's like, damn, all right. Also, I wrote down the music in this movie, no offense, is very, like, low rent.
I wrote the same thing. I said that this movie does not have the musical quality of the first movie.
Oh my gosh. It's, like, weird synthy, like, the kind of music you hear in between when a TV show goes to commercial and comes back. Yes. But, like, extended out longer to be soundtrack. It was really bad. Really bad.
This music has
to the extreme.
This music has the vibe of an episode of Charmed where they didn't have the budget to pay for the actual music from the episode, so they just put in music that sounded vaguely 90s. Am I wrong?
No, not at all.
Okay, so she eventually decides she wants to learn karate from Mr. Miyagi.
Are you gonna skip the scene where she does air guitar?
Oh, go for it.
I mean, all I can say is they really are, all of a sudden are like leaning into this she really loves music thing, which has not been a thing for the whole movie, but now she is like doing air guitar and rock and roll in her room.
Yes.
And she says, and this is the part where the movie writers were like, have we made her it clear that this movie is about a girl and not a boy doing karate? Have we made that clear yet? What motivates a girl? Let's see. And they have Hilary Swank all of a sudden, who, by the way, the whole movie has been like, you know, not the stereotypical mold of a teenage girl. Like, she's not been like, I want to do, like, fashion design like they usually do. She's like, you know, she's not that. But now she's like,
no,
I want to go to the mall. I love going to the mall. I want to go shopping.
It makes no sense for her character, but for some reason she really wants to go to the mall.
And he says something to her about it, and she says to him, I don't think you know anything about girls. And I wrote down, that's a big message for the filmmakers.
Yeah.
So they also need to find a way to have Mr. Miyagi put her through the ringer, because we know that that's kind of his thing, to have his students be under extreme duress. And so his plan for her, because she's a girl, he can't have her doing work like that, is to be a babysitter.
Yes.
A babysitter. And then we get a very annoying, long...
Nerf commercial?
Nerf commercial! Yes! So now she's in a Nerf commercial.
Yes, she's in a Nerf commercial. It's Nickelodeon's like
Double Dare physical challenge.
Transitional Double Dare. Yeah.
Yes. It's out of control. She's just like running around the house with three or four obnoxious children shooting Nerf things at her, throwing discs, and then he brings a bunch more to them for them to do it. It's like, oh my god, it's long. It's long.
Yes. And then that night she blasts music again but this time it's to cover her sneaking out at night so that she can go check on the hawk. But this time the bad boys, who don't have a group name this time, unfortunately, not like the Cobra Kai.
No.
But the bad boys spot her, and Ned, her nemesis, her sexual harasser,
right,
is like, I knew it was Julie.
They're waiting for her.
They're waiting for her. So like a group of 6 guys is just in the school at night waiting for her to come in alone. And we basically get like the subtext, I mean, not even really subtext,
right,
but the underlying theme of this movie is that at any moment she could be sexually assaulted by this man and his group of friends.
Right. What is the plan? This is like not, that's the thing. It's not even like subtext. It's like, these 6 guys are waiting here for her to show up, and then they're going to blank. What are they going to do?
Assault her in some way. Yeah,
right. That's their actual
really
plan.
Creepy.
Like,
yeah,
not secret plan, not like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder what they're suggesting. No, that is actually their plan, to physically or sexually assault her, maybe kill her. It almost seems like they want to kill her. And I'm like, is this a horror movie? Is this Scream? It felt like I was watching a horror movie.
Well, we get a chase scene, and it's very reminiscent. Like, there's this scene where she's like running through the kitchen and hiding under like stainless steel tables and stuff like that. And I literally wrote, this is basically the Jurassic Park kitchen scene, but with rapists instead of dinosaurs.
Yes, it is. It literally is.
It's so uncomfortable to watch.
It's so uncomfortable. She does use her signature move here of throwing flashlights.
She does. Gotta play to her strengths.
So that's helpful.
And she manages to outrace them and get out, but just as the cops are pulling up, and of course, who is the cop that catches her but the colonel? So she immediately gets suspended from school for 2 weeks, and she is going to go on a little road trip with Miyagi while McGowan watches after her hawk for her.
Which, by the way, McGowan and her have not hung out outside of school other than her stalking him that one time.
Yes.
Ever once, not once. They barely know each other. That was their first time having a conversation. Ever.
Correct.
And he's going to babysit a hawk that is hidden on the roof that you have to sneak out at night to do. It has to be a big secret. And when she says you have to babysit it and she says what it eats, did you write it down?
I didn't.
Raw meat every other day. He's got to sneak up there with raw meat every other day to feed a hawk. No thanks.
No.
No thanks to a girl who is terrible to him.
Yes. So
weird.
Miyagi and Julie go on their road trip. We get a scene at a gas station where she almost gets eaten by a dog and again harassed by men. But this is where it's basically the scene where we get to see Miyagi demonstrate his fighting skills. And she's like, that's so cool. You kicked their ass. That's amazing. And he's like, actually fighting is the last thing that I want to do. And it's not cool. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like the first instance of her learning like violence is not the answer,
right?
And that he's always looking for a way not to fight if he can. And this is when we learn what the actual destination of their road trip is. They arrive at what appears to be a Buddhist temple. Mm-hmm. And this is where they're staying for the next 2 weeks. And this is where he's going to kind of... So one thing I did kind of like is like in the first movie, the first Karate Kid, like he's mastering karate specifically for self-defense, and in this movie she's learning karate as a means of controlling her own anger, which I kind of thought was sort of cool because I feel like that's not like it's not just the exact same story. Like there's a self management sort of aspect to it that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought about that.
But what are your thoughts on all of the temple scenes?
Oh my god. This is I don't know if the movie's trying to tell us that teenagers are stupid or that girls are stupid. I'm not sure what their message is either way, but she's at a Buddhist temple. They had to sit outside the Buddhist temple for hours in silence.
For a day. In
order for them to open it. He's sitting meditating, and she walks in the room and is talking to him and he's not answering. He's like got his eyes closed. He's like got his fingers in like an Om position basically. And she gets like right close to his face and is like, hello, click, click, clack, cluck. Who would do this to somebody in general? Ever?
Nobody. It's as though she's never heard of the concept of meditation before.
Right. And then it's all things like that. It's all a bunch of like, she walks into a room with a bunch of Buddhists who are like complete silence. She's like screaming, why is everyone so quiet? It's like a cartoon.
It's very that.
It's so annoying. Then we have a bunch of scenes, like, if they just do a bunch of scenes of her, like, beginning stages of her, like, training, quote unquote, which is essentially...
Yes.
Which is literally... Her training is just, like, being among them and trying to learn to be quiet. A few scenes we get of her in a barn where someone from high up swings a sandbag at her, and she's so slow, so incredibly slow and blind that... she gets hit every time at first, and then of course, progressively less. We'll talk about that in a second. And then there's a scene where she almost kills a bug at dinner, and they all are really mad at her, which I don't think is very Buddhist. I think it would have been like a learning moment, not like an anger. I'm not a Buddhist monk, but it felt like they all are mad at her and punishing her because she almost killed a bug, and said, and when they say, "Oh, we don't kill things here," she goes, "That's a stupid rule."
Yeah.
What is happening?
And yeah.
And I thought it was all just a lot of like, I thought it was silly for the most part.
I agree. It was silly. Although, here's my note. You described everything that kind of like happens during this whole little series with the Buddhist temple pretty well. I think that I think the part that I did appreciate of it is, again, it's the time frame doesn't work, but I feel like we got more actual karate instruction between her and Miyagi in this movie than we did in the first movie with Daniel.
Do you think? Okay, here's what I think about the karate instruction that happened here. One of her little things in her montage of doing this other stuff is standing on a rock in a Zen garden, a very large Zen type garden, and then jumping from one rock to the other rock and doing a very elaborate jump kick, essentially, and landing. And it's a long time of her not being able to do this jump kick. A long time. And it's, it's symbolizing, like, she's learning over time, like, to, not give up and blah, 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 use your other senses. There's also a weird scene of her finding a praying mantis and running through flowers. Like it, I thought I was tripping on LSD for a second. There's also a part where she calls home to ask about her stupid bird, and almost ruins this kid's life because he's told by the colonel, the coach, that if he answers a call from his mom, because she fakes it and says it's his mom, that like a teacher came in and said about like, oh, you have a call from your mom. If he answers it, he's gonna be flipping burgers for the rest of his life.
Yes, that he's going to refuse to give him the recommendation. And then when he takes the call, it's actually Julie just being like, how's the bird? And I would have killed her.
Fine. Who cares? And then we get back to Julie, and now she's like learned a little bit of like decorum, and we get that scene of her doing like the kata or the routine to like the cranberries.
Yes.
Yes. And this is the scene.
And then the monks all come in and start dancing to the cranberries.
Dancing, quote unquote. Yeah. What did you think about this scene?
It was ridiculous, but it made me laugh by how ridiculous it was. And that's where we get the line that you opened our episode with, where Miyagi says, "Never trust spiritual leaders who can't dance."
Yeah. And then we got another quick training montage showing her doing some of the karate better, like the routine that she did. This is the karate we get in this movie. We get her trying to do the jump kick and falling a lot. We get a couple of scenes of her doing some like karate moves during a montage. Then we get her training with the bags hitting her, and now she's kicking them, and she kicks one open, and like it's like confetti. It's like she kicked a bag of flour open. It's like cocaine all over the place. It's so preposterous.
Yes.
She kicks the bag open at the end of the montage. And I think that's when she does the jump kick correctly. And that's it.
Correct.
I feel like that's the whole karate.
Well, I would like to point out that you forgot the scene where she is practicing behind a waterfall, which is obviously very important.
Oh, right. I did forget about the waterfall scene. You're right. I remember that. I remember that from the trailers.
Yes, me too. It's her birthday while she's there, so they make a cake for her and sing happy birthday to her. And her wish is for them to come visit her in Boston, because she has now learned to love and appreciate the Buddhist monks who so confounded her when she first arrived there 2 whole weeks ago.
Right. Now she understands them. And now her wish is for them to visit her in Boston.
And we get so she gets that wish and a gift, and the gift is for her to watch them shoot an arrow at Miyagi, and he catches the arrow before it hits him in the chest, which it has no relevance to the plot whatsoever, and so I'm unclear why we needed that scene and why that's her birthday gift.
I would have said, that's cool, but can I have a gift card?
Honestly, I mean, come on, I want to go to Target. She wants to go to the mall.
For real. I'd be like, that's my gift?
I want to get my lobes pierced at Claire's. Can I have a Claire's gift certificate?
I get a free pair of earrings.
So this whole time at the Buddhist temple comes to an end. She has to go back to school tomorrow, and she comes back to school like a whole new person. Like she's learned to manage her anger, and she's happy and upbeat now.
She spits proverbs out instead of having sentences.
Correct. She runs into McGowan at the lunch line, and we learn that McGowan quit the group. And they go to visit Angel, and suddenly they realize Angel is missing from her cage. And McGowan comes unglued on Ned when he's like, grabs him by his shirt and is like, "Where's the hawk?" As though he's suddenly so passionate about this bird. But legitimately, the bird is at the animal shelter. Like, the next scene is them going to the animal shelter to see if Angel is okay.
And that's
where that bird should have been. It's where it should have been the whole time.
Right. From the very beginning. And he almost kills Ned. He's about to throw him off the roof of the school.
Yes.
The two of them are about to.
Over this bird that he shouldn't be taking care of.
There's no, consequences for anybody trying to kill each other in this movie or assault each other. Ever.
None whatsoever. But they release Angel at the lake, and Miyagi has this scene where he's like, Angel flew because he was confident he sensed your confidence in him, and it's, I don't know, meant to be like she's grown and she can take flight now as a person or whatever.
Yeah,
blah,
and
blah.
you know what I thought to myself, honestly? I bet the bird was never even her. I bet she has Munchausen's and she like was keeping the bird there. And it was like a very Gypsy Rose situation because she was lonely.
She was just wrapping the bird's wings so it couldn't fly away.
Exactly.
So Eric asks her to the senior prom. She doesn't have a dress. And she's like telling Mr. Miyagi, like, what if we have to do an old This is my favorite line delivery, and I'm going to try to do it as she did it. She says, what happens if we have to do an old-fashioned waltz? I don't even know how to waltz. And just the way that she kept saying waltz in the strangest way was so funny to me.
And what is what planet? What planet? And then this is more karate, I guess, here.
Well, yeah, so he teaches her how to waltz first by having her like punch and all of that and like follow him. So he basically teaches her how to waltz by teaching her some karate moves. And he goes and buys her a dress for the prom. That scene where he buys a dress is kind of funny because the woman keeps asking him questions about like who it's for and her style and her size and all that. And he keeps giving her like complete vague, useless information. And so she's like, okay, great.
Yeah, I did like that.
So I thought that was a funny scene. For some reason, the monks come visit like the next day, the day of the prom, and they like see her off to the prom
Very
while
strange.
the monks and Miyagi go bowling.
Right. Why? Why? And also,
I don't know.
The way they see her off to the prom is so overly emotional. Like, it's like she's getting married. It's a prom.
Yes.
Mr. Miyagi's crying.
Yes.
What's happening? And by the way, on the way to the, I don't remember how it happened, but I know what happened. I wrote, what's with the Karate Kid and car accidents? Because there must have been a car accident that happens.
Are you thinking of when he busts the windows in after the prom?
Oh, that might be it. Well, I don't know. I think there's a car accident. I think someone gets into a car accident. I don't know. But either way.
Well, okay, wait. Because at the prom, there is the weirdest scene that makes no sense whatsoever. So they're all like dancing the waltz at the prom, and then suddenly they look up, and 3 of the army recruit guys are just attached to bungee cords, like up on the ceiling, and they like bungee down toward the dance floor. Mm-hmm. But one of them miscalculates and like hits some of the like set decoration at the prom and injures his arm. And it is never explained why they did this, what the motivation was. It's truly the strangest part of the movie. It made no sense to me.
It was very bizarre. I cannot imagine who wrote this. They were like, okay, we need a big moment at the prom because, like, you know, that's what movies have. Carrie has the moment at the dance. You know, there's a lot of moments at dances and things. So what are we going to have? What's the big moment that this team of people who are famous for being serial assaulters, what are they going to do at this prom to bust it up? We're going to have 3 of them jump from bungee cords and they didn't. I thought, oh, okay, this is dumb, but I guess they're bungeeing down to now like fight or something. No, the whole plan was just to bungee down and have people like see it happen. And then the trick, quote unquote, the trick got ruined because one of them hurt their arm, but the other 2 just kind of hung there. And then when they're when they're getting criticized for it, the leader of them is like, at least he was brave enough to try it. What?
Right.
Try what?
Try what? Yeah. But then they are like driving away, and this is when he's like dropping her off back at home, but then Ned, the lead bad guy, smashes in the window of Eric McGowan's car and is like, come meet me at the docks. And we get kind of like the big climactic scene at the docks where
oh my god,
they began by saying, now it's payback time.
And
they light his car on fire.
They light his car on fire. When they get there, there are already barrels on fire, flaming barrels at the docks. It looks like a satanic ritual. They light his fucking car on fire and they blow it up.
Yes.
It blows up.
And it's going to be a 6-on-1 fight, McGowan against the entire crew of this team that he has kind of abandoned. And they just start beating the ever-loving shit about him. And it's so weird to me because at this point I was like, is this movie even about Hilary Swank or is this movie about McGowan?
Right. And where's the karate?
Excellent point. Well,
Here we go,
that's when she arrives and is like, let me fight him. And Mr. Miyagi's like, no, let's just go. We're not going to fight. And the colonel is like, no, let's do this.
Hold on.
And so, okay, go ahead.
Can we just talk about this for a second? She spent 2 weeks. We talked about the timeline of Daniel in the last movie, who had months to train.
Yeah, that was 2 months. This one is 2 weeks.
She had 2 weeks, the first week of which she couldn't do anything. So she had about a week to, quote unquote, perfect her karate skills.
Yes.
And her all we know she can do is a jump kick at all. We have not seen any evidence that she's been able to really do anything else. And she says, let me fight them. These people are not doing karate. They have been physically assaulting her and trying to sexually assault her the whole movie. And they have physically assaulted each other, punched each other. One of them has a broken arm. What? And Mr. Mia, and this is even going to be considered? How?
Right. Also, the whole time the colonel that they're beating up McGowan before she arrives, the colonel says to them, finish him off, which sounds like either he's saying like, give him a blowjob or kill him.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So
Exactly.
he's basically telling these teenagers to murder somebody.
Yeah. And he tells them the same thing for her. He says, put her away.
Yeah. So she battles Ned. She does her little praying mantis jump kick, kind of like the crane kick, and beats Ned, kicks him in the face. And then the colonel and Miyagi face off, and of course Miyagi kicks his ass, and the boys all lose respect for the colonel
Suddenly.
And suddenly, kind of like the end of the first Karate Kid, where they're like, "You're all right, LaRusso."
Yeah.
And then we get the final line of the movie where they're walking away and she's like, Miyagi, you kicked his ass. You're so amazing. And he's like, fighting is bad, blah, blah, blah. But then the final line is, fighting, not good, but if must fight, win. And then that's the final line.
What?
Bum, bum, bum.
In the world. And by the way, those last fight scenes were pitiful.
Yeah, they were not good at
the
all.
most slow motion. They were turn-by-turn role-playing game style fight scenes. When the whole movie they're like literally melee attacking each other. No time to breathe. But now all of a sudden they're like, okay, your turn, Mr. Miyagi.
This film was indeed written by a man named Mike Lee. There appears to be no other writers, according to Wikipedia, at least.
Shock.
Some fun trivia. All 4 of the Karate Kid films, including this one, involve the lead protagonist going to a dance, which always culminates or leads up to a fight.
I did love that. I also loved that. I didn't catch this, and I imagine that only like really keen watchers would have caught this. But there's a song called "Fascination" in the movie, and it's the one he's teaching her to dance with. And it says that it's also in the original Karate Kid at the country club scene when, she punches the guy out in the face. And I've seen the Karate Kid too, but not in some time. But it's also in the radio in the car in that movie too. So they kind of did little things to tie all of these together. I also read there a 5th movie was in the plan, but Mr. Miyagi's actor passed away.
Yeah, Pat Morita died in 2005, it looks like.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this movie doesn't have a whole lot of amazing trivia behind it, other than the original Karate Kid made $90 million in 1984, and this movie made $9 million in 1994. So it was a pretty brutal flop for the franchise compared to the first 3 movies, because it went 90 million and then the Karate Kid, this is wild. Okay, so original Karate Kid made 90 million, Karate Kid Part 2 made 115 million, and then the third one made 40 million, and then this one only made 9.
Yeah.
Yikes. So not great compared to the other ones.
Do you want to know the ratings?
Yeah, it looks like. Oh yes, let's do the ratings. Hang on, let me pull up my spreadsheet. Okay, so what did this do? How did this do on IMDb?
Not great. It got a 4.5.
Oof. Okay. All right. What about Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, Rotten Tomatoes. The tomato meter is 7%.
7?
7. And the audience meter, which, by the way, Rotten Tomatoes is trying to rebrand as the popcorn meter, so we may have to start calling it that. But the audience meter, popcorn meter, is 24% only. I'm shocked it's more than the tomato meter.
Whoa. So this is by far the lowest reviewed movie that we've watched so far, like far and away.
Yeah, I would say so.
Oof. Okay. How would you rate this movie?
I give it a 3.2.
Whoa. I was going to give it like a 5.
Okay.
I'm going to give it just a solid 5. And here's my thing. This movie is not good, but it's not, at least at 1.25 speed, it's not unwatchable. And so I'm actually... You're going to die. I'm going to label this a beauty. I think that it's worth watching. It's ridiculous. It's short-ish, at least at 1.25 speed. You get some ridiculous moments. You get to see a woman protagonist, even though the movie is terrible. So I'm calling it a beauty. What about you?
Okay. I'm going to amend my score a tiny bit only. I'm going to give it 3.4 because I could just... Okay. I want it to be a little bit around here. And it is a beast. It is a beast. I definitely still think it's worth watching. Many of the things I've called a beast, I still think are worth watching. I think it's fun in a Coyote Ugly kind of way, ridiculous. I think it is. I love seeing an actor that I respect a lot in an early role where they're out of control, ridiculously over the top, and I definitely think Hilary Swank's acting in this was, in my opinion, over the top, and I love that.
Atrocious.
Yeah. I laughed out loud and multiple times I wasn't supposed to. I was perplexed a lot of the time, which made me very interested. Like, the fact that the bad guys were just, like, straight up, like, future rapists. I didn't even... The fact that the bad guys were straight up criminals, I'll say... I don't understand. I could not understand it the whole time. I'm like, wait, they're actually just threatening to fight her and actually manhandling and hurting her, and no one does anything. And that's like the plot, is that these people are trying to like maybe kill her. And I just could not wrap my head around it the whole time. So I was very clued in.
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching it. If you think about it as a horror movie, you might get a better experience.
Well, we're continuing on our little Karate Kid vibe here, and we're going to be doing what is called The Karate Kid, a 2010 movie starring, I think it's Jaden Smith and Will Smith's
Chan.
child. Yes, Jackie Chan. So no Pat Morita in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll be what we review for next week. And then I think our final edition in this little mini series is going to be maybe the first episode of Cobra Kai.
Yeah. We'll figure out what we need to. If we've watched the first episode and we feel like we need a second, we'll do it. But we'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right, everybody, if you enjoyed listening to this and you would like to show your gratitude, we would love it if you would write us a review and subscribe to our podcast.
That's right. And the second best thing that you could do for us is if you could recommend our podcast to a friend, because you have good taste and people respect your opinion.
You can also find us on social media. We love hearing from you, so check us out on RebootyPod on Instagram, Twitter, or on TikTok eventually. And you can email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. We love hearing from you.
Yeah. We also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/nandmatt. You get cool bonus episodes where we do things like review books and movies, and we have a back catalog where we play some fun games, so check that out.
And it is pumpkin spice season, so if you want, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/nandmatt.
Thank you for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
See you next week.